Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Texas, Michigan State, and a plethora of other Power 5 schools had their spring games this past weekend. As you could already tell by Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Texas, a lot of teams that are appearing inside people's top 25, more specifically appearing in several analysts' top 10s, a lot of them played this past weekend. So this week, going through film, going through reports and articles, it has been fun. It's also been very busy. But now we're getting to Michigan State. Michigan State is a team that, compared to the aforementioned teams that I talked about, is not going to be paid attention to nearly as much as your Georgias and Ohio States of the world, nor should they be. They're not recruiting at the same level. They had a losing season last year while the Buckeyes and Dogs went to the playoff, but they're still a Big Ten school, and I'm from the state of Michigan. I go to the University of Michigan, and I respect Michigan State as a program, and after watching their spring game, I respect them even more as a football team. Michigan State had a open practice. It was not like Michigan's spring game, where it was an actual football game just played between two halves of the squad, nor was it like Ohio State's spring game, where it was an offense versus defense type of game. This was just an open practice with 7-on-7s, 9-on-9s, a little bit of 11-on-11, but no official scoreboard. It was just an open practice. That's what it was. But there were things that I liked about it. You know, last year watching Michigan State spring practice, they looked good at certain points, but the trench play was unimpressive. All of last year, all of the 2022 preseason, I thought that Michigan State was wildly overrated, that people were blowing the team out of proportion. They were setting up standards that Michigan State was nearly guaranteed to fail when you put them up against those expectations in 2022. And I tried to tell everyone that 2021 was not the norm. Was it a fluke? No. They went 11-2. They won 11 games. They won a New Year's Six bowl game. They beat the Big Ten champions in the Michigan Wolverines, their biggest rival. It was legitimate. However, if you were to simulate the season 1,000 times, and if you were to watch all of Michigan State's games in 2021, you knew that that was their ceiling. That was their absolute ceiling as a program that year. 11-2 should never have been the expectation. I don't know why it was, and that's what made Michigan State's 2022 season even more painful than it already was, both for Michigan State football fans and people like myself and others who thought that they would at least be competitive and be fun to watch, and they weren't. But I think this year's team, and this is what I'm getting to, I think they're different. Not different in the sense that they're going to be as good as the 2021 squad. Not different in the sense that they will be better than the 2021 squad. Not different in the sense that they will have a unicorn on the team like they did in 2021 with Kenneth Walker. Not even different in the sense that this team will look different schematically or they will change their identity. But different in the sense that they will not be a doormat. And in the sense that I think this will be the best defense that Scottie Hazelton has had at MSU. I said that last year, and that was not a good prediction, but looking at spring practice, looking at some of the portal additions, I think that there's a lot of validity, a lot of reasons to be optimistic there. I think that from an offensive perspective, I don't think that anything will change schematically. And after watching that game, or that open practice rather, I don't know exactly if it needs to be changed. Now, long term, whether you're going to switch your schematics or whether you, if you're Mel Tucker or Jay Johnson or Scottie Hazelton, if you want to compete for championships, you have to recruit better. You got to be more disciplined. you got to be much better on special teams. I don't know how Ross Ells still has a job and is still employed with how atrocious the special teams have been. But the running back room, the trench play, even the quarterback play, I liked it. The offensive line looks tough. They don't look like a doormat. They don't seem like a doormat. And I think there's a little bit of truth in the saying that, look, the offensive line is probably a little better than I thought it was. The defensive line is probably a little bit worse than I thought it was. They're probably a little more even and not as unbalanced, favoring the defense as I thought. But there were moments where the secondary looked good. I thought from an offensive line perspective, specifically when it came to running the football, I liked what I saw. I liked what I saw on the interior of that offensive line, from Nick Semak, J.D. Duplain, who's ranked high on Pro Football Focus's offensive line rankings. J.D. Duplain's ranked rather high there. Him and Semak are seniors. Gino Van de Mark who's projected to be the starter on the other side of Duplain at right guard. He's a redshirt sophomore, so you have experience in the interior of that offensive line. Keyshawn Blackstock, an incoming transfer who's a junior, looks to be the starter at left tackle. Brandon Baldwin, another name who's a returning starter. He's a redshirt junior. Looks to be starting at the right tackle position. I like this offensive line. Now, do I think it's going to be world class like Ohio State or especially Michigan, Georgia, Texas, Oregon? No. But I think it will be better than last year's offensive line, which was atrocious at run block. And it'll be better than the 2021 O-line, which was slightly better at run block and slightly better at pass block than the 2022 unit was. Run blocking for the offensive line, I think, will be its strength. A lot of that, though, has to do with the fact that Nathan Carter, Jaron Mangum, from a transfer portal and depth standpoint, are really good, and they have speed to them. And Jalen Berger was taking some reps with the second team, and I think that signals what I said last year, but because the running back room wasn't as good last year as I thought it was, it could never happen, that Jalen Berger isn't the guy at running back. I think Nathan Carter's the guy at running back. Nathan Carter last year at UConn, he only played in 4 games, and he had 405 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, an average of 6.2 yards per carry on 65 rushing attempts. He also had 39 rushing yards, and he only had 1 fumble in a game against Utah State, where he had 20 carries and also a long rush of 52. On UConn, one of the worst rosters in America in 2022. Now, they have a lot of returning production entering 2023, and they're recruiting good for UConn standards under Jim Mora, so I think you will see improvement there. But Nathan Carter's a Michigan State Spartan now. He's here. And the run game, the trench play, I was impressed with. Benjamin Hall did good. The linebacker and defensive back areas, defensive back and linebacker, especially when it comes to coverage at linebacker, have been a struggle amongst the defense for the entirety of the Mel Tucker era. And I think some of those are being rectified. I think MSU's secondary has done a lot of addition by subtraction. Xavier Henderson, Amir Speed, Kendall Brooks, Ronald Williams. Outside of Henderson, none of those players were good. And Henderson was better at blitzing, better at stopping the run, and better at leadership than he was in coverage. When it comes to coverage, Michigan State, just looking at the projected starting defensive backs, is going to improve in every area. Jaden Mangum, Dylan Tatum, they're going to be starters. Those were Mel Tucker guys, 4 stars, athletes that were recruited by him. Malik Spencer, Charles Brantley, Marquis Lowry Jr., those 5 are your projected starters at the secondary. Jacoby Windman and Cal Halliday are your projected starters at linebacker with the 4-2-5 standard defense, though Scottie Hazelton again uses multiple defensive schemes. It's a 4-2-5 multiple, so Aaron Brule, Darius Snow, Ma Gaotioti. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. The kid who almost transferred after the 2021 season but decided to come back. He actually got some playing time in the open practice and I thought looked good too. So I like where this team is heading. There were more things, actually far more things that I liked than disliked. And after this spring game, this open practice at Spartan Stadium, I think that Michigan State is better than I thought they were entering this open practice. And Michigan State has a real shot to do something. And by doing something, I don't mean reach the college football playoff, but I mean be fun to watch and look a heck of a lot better than they did in 2022. And also by do something, I mean that they might be able to beat one of the 5 top 25 caliber teams that are on their schedule. Possibly beat one of the 4 top 10 caliber teams that I think are on their schedule. Washington, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. They get all but Ohio State on the road. And Michigan State, I think, after the open practice, looking at their trench play, looking at their defense, they have a real chance to be competitive in a majority of those 4 games. And they have a real chance to put themselves in a position to go to a decent bowl game and not just go to the Music City Bowl or go to what was formerly known as the Little Caesars Bowl, which is hosted at Ford Field in Detroit. They have a real chance to do something here. And I think that quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, they're set at skill position. And when you're set at skill position and your offensive line looks good, that means you have a cohesive, good offense. That means that you're going to be able to be balanced in your attack, running the football, passing the football. I think Michigan State, I think that their strength is actually going to be in running the football through the interior of that O-line. And I do think that their tight end room is extremely deep. I think that Michigan State will be better being a consistent offense, not an explosive one. I don't think you're going to get that boom or bust capacity that you got in 2021. I don't think you'll reach that. But I think if you're a Spartan fan, this might be the most consistent offense that you've seen in the Mel Tucker era. Now, does that mean more points per game? I have no clue, because if you have that boom or bust potential, if you're explosive or punt, you will get a lot of points, especially against the weaker opponents you play who, if you just can outspeed them, you'll score on every drive. But I think that Michigan State, with their run game and with the interior of that O-line, it's actually I think it's a similar position to what Ohio State is in this year in the trenches and what Michigan had in 2021, where you're not going to get a bunch of explosive runs, but you will be able to get 3 to 4 yards per carry, even in your toughest games. For Ohio State, of course, they have the better interior O-line and better running back room, so for them it's probably 5 or 6 on average through the interior. But Michigan State should be able to, with Nathan Carter, Jalen Berger, who's more of an all-purpose power back now, and with the depth that they have there, whether it's Jordan Simmons, Davion Prim, cannot forget Jaron Mangum, they'll be able to get 3-4 yards per carry, and the identity of running the football will be more of a logical play call and a logical belief than running it like they did in 2022 when you knew that they had no O-line and you were basically giving the defense a rest by running the football if you were Michigan State last year. I think the running back room's gotten deeper. Nathan Carter has elite potential. If there is to be a running back in this room that could be compared to Kenneth Walker, last year I said it was Jarek Broussard, and that I didn't predict that was going to happen, but any chance of that happening, if that were to be graded, would have gotten an F last year. This year, I think it's Nathan Carter. He has the speed, he has the size, looks really good. I think he's a better running back than Jalen Berger. I'd take him all day. And the offensive line, again, looks tough. They were able to move and push the defensive line at times. Pass pro looked okay. I thought run pro looked good. Now the quarterback position. What's behind the offensive line and who gets the snap and hands the ball to the running back. Quarterback's very intriguing. As an article by Spartan Avenue on Fansided wrote, Noah Kim stepped up. And Noah Kim, he didn't solidify himself as a starter. I think Peyton Thorne is still well ahead when it comes to starting. But Noah Kim changed a perception that it was a two-man race between Peyton Thorne, the veteran starter who broke many records in 2021, and Katin Houser, a high-ceiling quarterback that was recruited in the 2022 class that had a lot of hype to him. Noah Kim kind of came out of nowhere and inserted his name into the race. And to make another comparison to another team whose spring game was this past weekend, I think he kind of pulled a little bit of a Malik Murphy. Now again, in the same way that Ohio State's interior O-line is miles better than Michigan State's interior O-line, Malik Murphy is miles better than Noah Kim. But after Malik Murphy lost his 5-star status, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, myself included, kind of forgot that he was in Texas's quarterback room. And he showed that he is a factor. And I actually am now of the personal opinion that if Texas wants to reach the playoff, if they want to maximize their potential, they should start Malik Murphy over Quinn Ewers. I just think Murphy's the better player, both from a on the field and off the field standpoint. He's been a day one since he's been at Texas. Noah Kim has been a day one since he's been at Michigan State. Noah Kim has. And he was a sophomore. He went 14 of 19 last year for 174 yards, 9.2 yards per throw, 3 touchdowns. He had a 202.7 passer rating, a 94.9 QBR. Those are impressive numbers. Of course, they were against second stringers in the Ohio State, Minnesota, and Akron games. Not a big sample size, but when he has gotten opportunities, he has made the most of them. And what he did is everyone forgot that Noah Kim was there. Now, some people, I actually have some people that I do talk to occasionally who said that Peyton Thorne, after the Ohio State game or after the Minnesota game last year, should get some starting reps, and they should open up the competition middle of the season. Well, now those people look like they had some knowledge, look like there's some truth there. Noah Kim looked good. He had some questionable throws, like Peyton Thorne and Katin Houser did. I thought Katin Houser looked the worst out of all of them, but he had the best throws, including a late touchdown pass that landed directly in the bucket to Antonio Gates Jr. to score. So Noah Kim is well within the reins, or well within the zone to take over as QB1. Now I think Peyton Thorne will still take over at that quarterback position, but third stringer, or previously third stringer, Noah Kim had the best performance. We'll see if he passes Katin Houser on the depth chart entering fall practice, and from there we'll see if he can pass Peyton Thorne. I still think Peyton Thorne is well ahead in that first string position. And then finally, I mentioned this a little earlier, but Michigan State receivers and defensive backs traded impressive plays back and forth. And one name out of those two that I want to mention is Trey Mosley. Not because he had a great spring practice. He did have a few catches. He did have some good moments, but because Trey Mosley is another forgotten face, and he was a part of the 2021 squad. He actually did well that year. In 2021, Trey Mosley had 530 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 15.1 yards per reception. He had 35 receptions this year, but only for 359 yards and 10.3 yards per reception. See, what happens when you aren't as impressive as you are the year before, and you're not like a Jaden Reed or a Keon Coleman, where Keon Coleman, just from a physical and raw talent potential aspect, just looks impressive. He's going to get all the attention there. Or where you're Jaden Reed, where you were a 1,000-yard wide receiver last year. Trey Mosley has sort of been the third wheel of this Michigan State wide receiver room. And now that Jaden Reed is gone, Keon Coleman is obviously guy number one. I think he'll be a first-team All-Big Ten caliber wide receiver. Monterey Foster Jr. is up there. Trey Mosley is up there. Those are your projected starting three. And the tight end room, you got Malik Carr, you got Jalen Franklin, you got Tyneil Hopper. And you have others too. That tight end room is ridiculously underrated. And so is the wide receiver room. But Trey Mosley, I would look for him to potentially be a breakout candidate this coming fall. 500-yard receiver in 2021, nearly a 400-yard receiver this year. He'll probably move more into that number 2 position. And with Jaden Reed gone, there's just more room for him to step up. And I think he's somewhat of a forgotten name in Big Ten circles. If you're a Michigan State fan, obviously, because he is on your roster, you're going to know who he is. But throughout 2022, I kind of thought to myself, well, where did Trey Mosley go? I knew that Jaden Reed was injured. That's why he didn't have as good of a year. Keon Coleman didn't exactly come out of nowhere, but he had a much better year than I thought he was going to have. And that was that. In my mind, I was sort of like, well, where did Trey Mosley go? Trey Mosley was one of the 2 returning wide receivers from 2021. Jaden Reed returned, Trey Mosley returned. Speedy Naylor was gone to the Minnesota Vikings, and Keon Coleman was that high ceiling but sort of unknown guy who was projected to be a starter. He passed both Reed and Mosley. Reed got injured, and Mosley didn't even reach 400 yards. And I think that he is going to avenge that, and he's going to have a good 2023 campaign. Some guys to watch for defensive backs, though, and this is where we'll end the video, but Dylan Tatum, Jaden Mangham, guys who were recruited by Mel Tucker, 4 stars. I think the secondary, I'm going to say this again, addition by subtraction. All the players who left were awful in coverage. They could not cover for the life of them. It was time for them to move on. Xavier Henderson will be missed a little bit, but the other 3, they should have been benched a while ago, a lot of them, especially Ronald Williams. And seeing Chester Kimbrough on ourlads.com as the 3rd string corner, I think is evidence to the fact that this corner room and the secondary as a whole is getting deeper and getting better. The wide receivers and the defensive backs, I thought, were relatively balanced in spring practice, which is good news. So I like the direction that MSU is heading toward. I think they could be a Big Ten sleeper. Obviously, in a video I made titled it was kind of titled Big 2, Little 10. That wasn't the title at all, but that was the message presented in the video. Why Michigan and Ohio State are ahead of the rest of the conference. I think the Buckeyes and Wolverines are so far ahead of Michigan State that Michigan State can't even see them. But Michigan State's rising, and with the talent they have, and if some things go their way, and if Michigan and Ohio State aren't as good as I think they will be, or maybe they have an off day, who knows? Michigan State was 1 game away in 2021 from either sharing a Big Ten East championship or being the Big Ten East champion. So certainly, I think the Spartans could be a Big Ten sleeper. If not, they will certainly be fun to watch this 2023 season. Guys, thank you for watching the video. Please hit that subscribe button, like this video, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. I know I'm a Michigan fan, but I'll just say it here for fun. Go green, go white. Bye-bye.